This video segment features the new User-Defined Attributes capability in GLStudio 4.1. User-defined attributes allow developers to track and analyze attribute definitions by defining characteristics with the appropriate attributes. Developers add these custom attributes to the User-Defined Attributes dictionary by accessing the editor through the Tools pull-down on the menu bar. Inside the User-Defined Attributes editor, notice that this design already has two user-defined attributes. The first attribute is intended to map design requirements to objects, properties, and methods. The second attribute is intended for use on properties and methods that have gone through testing. Notice that each attribute has several categories that need to be defined. First is the name that's given by the developer. Then a semantic, which in this case is a string. Finally, the developer chooses how to assign these attributes to objects, properties, and methods. Selecting one of these fields allows developers to choose one of four options. Unused means that this attribute will not be used at all for this category. Users will not be able to see it and will not be able to select it. Optional means that this attribute will be accessible for this category. Developers can choose whether or not to populate these attribute fields in their design. Mandatory means that this attribute will be accessible for this category and it must be populated. Failure to do so will result in that property appearing red, indicating that the attribute hasn't been filled out. Available means that the attribute will not be visible at first. However, it can be accessed through a sub-dialog box and may be accessed there. So the developer who defined this requirements attribute decided to flag it as an optional field for all of the objects, properties, and methods in the design. We will be able to see it, but choosing not to set it is acceptable. The tested attribute is not used on objects, but it is required on all properties and methods, meaning that all of these types need to pass testing. With all of the attributes properly configured, the editor can be dismissed. The first user-defined attribute is visible on the ECS labeled text box properties. The requirements attribute shows up at the bottom of the display object class section of the object properties. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that the properties for the text box's layout, coloring, font type, and language were defined in a requirements document. The information is located in section 2.4.3 of the document. The developer can add this data to the object for requirements tracing purposes, and it will be stored with the design for future reference. Modifying attributes inside code can be done on the Code tab for GLStudio. Recall that the testing attribute is configured as mandatory for all properties and methods in this design. As a result, all of the properties and the two methods are displaying in red since the attribute has yet to be set. To set the attributes on properties and methods, a new dialog box has been added to GLStudio. It is accessible through the Windows toolbar pull-down and choosing Code Properties. This opens up a new Code Properties tab inside of the GLStudio editor, which can be docked as desired for easy access. This tab displays the user-defined attributes configured for use on properties and methods and their current settings. To assign a value for testing, just enter the data into the field. For instance, the APU valve property was tested, so the developer enters true. Since all of the mandatory user-defined attributes on this property have been addressed, the coloring of the property in the editor reverts back to its standard appearance. The new user-definable attributes in GLStudio 4.1 allows developers to define new attributes with configurable characteristics. Coupling this feature with the new document generator provides a comprehensive way to track, analyze, and document the interface development process. If you would like to test out these new features, please request a download for GLStudio 4.1.